stalking, death, and mind control.
It's news to me.
Welcome to It's News to Me, where the it is IT and the me is whoever it needs to be. I'm Noah Parker.
I'm Michael Trotter Lawson.
And I am not Tyler Rasnick. I am Ben Lawson.
This is a somewhat special Halloween episode of It's News to Me, as Tyler has been murdered.
Not again.
I've done everything I could possibly do to get on this podcast, and this is what it took. I had to take him out.
No. Tyler was has been off for a couple weeks for personal reasons. So today we have Ben Lawson, Burk IT's general manager and
Everyone's favorite cybersecurity professional.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. I'm only here because of nepotism. I was brought in as a family member. That's all it was.
Oh gosh. All right. So today, Halloween-themed hypothetical question. If you were in a horror movie, would you survive? Why or why not?
I guess it depends on the type of horror movie. Because, I mean, if it's like a, paranormal activity kind of thing, I'd probably be less likely to survive than like a, 80s slasher killer movie.
I mean, I think we're thinking more of like very classic 80s slasher, like a Halloween, like a Friday the 13th, like a Nightmare on Elm Street. That
well,
kind of
okay,
thing.
does the comic relief in a horror movie usually die?
Yes.
I would die.
It's like, I am far too old and less appealing and not cute or adorable, or there is no reason they would want me in a sequel.
I think you'd show
and
up at,
only sequel value is the reason you survive a horror movie, is you need to be in the next one.
No, I think you'd be like the guy who like warns people at the beginning, and then you're fine because you're not stupid. You don't go into the creepy house and try to confront the creepy guy. You're like, oh, don't go in there.
That's the thing. Usually, most of the people that die in these horror movies are like teens or young adults. So
So I think you get like a free pass. Ben.
Yeah, but I could also play like the grumpy cop that shows up and doesn't believe the kids forever, and then he gets stabbed and murdered. And
That's true.
Irony of ironies, if he would have just paid attention.
Yeah.
Or
you'd be one of the. I could see you being just one of the random innocent people that they kill in a Halloween movie just to show how evil Michael Myers really is.
Yeah.
You're not important enough to be a main character.
I'm basically the red shirt of Halloween movies, is what you're telling me. That's what...
Well, in like the first Halloween movie, there's like that one couple that are just minding their own business, and it's just like a really long one take where Michael Myers just kills them. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could also be, and this could be one of the fun, camp scenes where I'm the lead camp counselor that has been oblivious to the fact that people have been murdered for the last 30 years at this camp and doesn't get that, hey, there's a problem here. And he's just hanging out and, listening to records while the kids are getting slaughtered out in the lake. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think for me it's a bit of a toss-up because sometimes, the lonely nerd survives, and sometimes they're killed. I mean,
So, okay, outside of the stereotypical movie trope characters, based on your skill sets, do you think you could survive being chased by a killer? Because I think I'm just dead either way.
I don't know, because I mean, the thing about running away from a killer is you don't have to run faster than the killer. You have to run faster than whoever you're running with.
That's true. Or, not drop your keys when you get to your car.
Yeah.
Or don't trip in the woods. That's a big one.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's very easy to say that that I wouldn't make any of those like classic horror film mistakes, but I think part of the thing is you never know how you're going to react in a like genuinely terrifying situation like that. And I'm not sure that I don't know. I like to think that like adrenaline would kick in and I just be able to run for like,
You, like
the fastest 40 time I've ever accomplished.
You like
and
throw a
things
car
like
at
that.
him because you're so adrenaline.
Not that level of adrenaline.
Oh.
But
It'd be a lot cooler.
Just instinctive.
Yeah.
Adrenaline, yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh.
See, I like to think that my years of watching zombie apocalypse content has prepared me for this. That my closet prepper activities and the random weapons and tools and things that I have prepared for that situation would play well in a horror movie scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I can take out a robot teddy bear. I am confident I have the tools to do that. So,
oh gosh. I mean, I think horror villain attacks you, at the house. I think you'd be fine.
well, it's more than a house. You have to have the car has to be prepared. The backpack has to be prepared. You have to think through these things. There were 6 booby traps in my hotel room last week, just in case. You never know. Nashville's a sketchy place.
Good to prepare, though.
All right. So, first up today, we're talking about a class action lawsuit that Apple has found themselves facing, which they're being sued by several, I can't remember the exact number, but a bunch of stalking victims in which the stalkers were using Apple AirTags to follow their victims. Well, I mean, Dad, this is it's an interesting topic that I'm glad you're here for, because I know that you're quite the fan of Apple. I know you have several AirTags.
I do.
So I guess.
But to be clear, I am not a stalker. I just happen to own several AirTags.
Yeah, I know.
Watch out.
Oh, Lord.
But I do know what you did last summer.
I can't remember what I did last summer. In any case, I don't think there's any arguing that AirTags are not. They're very useful, practical products, but at the same time, it's very easy to see how they can be misused like this. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't know. What do you think? Without just totally doing away with AirTags, which I don't think they would or even could do at this point. Like, what's the solution here? How do you put in measures to make stalking like this not as, I don't know, easy, not as dangerous? I mean, because clearly it is a problem, at least on some level.
No, it is, and Apple's not oblivious to the situation, nor is Google. I mean, Apple and Google, though they rarely, do anything of value together, have come together, and they've actually proposed an internet standard for trackable devices and how they should be managed. They actually coined the term UT, unwanted tracking, as a thing that needs to be battled in the industry. So they have proposed things like the ability to know a trackable device is present, and you're starting to see that with your iOS devices. I get it's your fault. But for all those people out there, I'm looking at Michael. It is 100% his fault that my phone freaks out every time we travel together because it sees his AirPods and thinks that someone has used his AirPods to track me. And that's a good thing. I want my allow to track functions to do what they need to do. It's a little bit of a slippery slope. I mean, you can do abusive things with a lot of technology and a lot of non-technical things. It's not the product's fault. But having good controls, putting mechanisms in place to say, when I don't want to be tracked, there's a way to turn it off. That's one of the things that Apple and Google have proposed, to say that it has to have a clear button or a clear manual switch to say track mode, not track mode, or when the device is physically close to your person, what information does it share versus when it's far away and it needs to act as the trackable device. So when my luggage is with me, I don't want my AirTags announcing to the world everything about me. But when my luggage is, more than 500 feet away and I'm looking for it at the airport, tell me where you're at and what's going on. So, I mean, there's some things that can be done. But, yeah, I mean, there's battling abuse of technology, something I think we're always going to face.
I guess part of my, I don't know what I was wondering, kind of reading through this article and whatnot, is, they are, like you said, Apple and Google are actively working together to try and kind of mitigate this stuff now. But it's kind of thing that I'm wondering, and it feels like maybe they should have done more of this before AirTags were released
I think
and
that
available
was,
everywhere.
I think that was a lot of the push behind this lawsuit, was that people felt as though Apple didn't take the right precautions before pushing these out at the scale that they did.
Right. Because, I mean, I think, at launch, there was no way for, people with Androids to know that they were being tracked by AirTags. I mean, they've since created an app that you can get. It's not automatically installed on Android devices, but they have since created that. And also there's the problem of, even though users can tell when they are being tracked by these other devices, it's kind of, they talk about in this article how it's almost a bit of a double-edged sword where you're being tracked, but when the thing that's tracking you is as small as like a quarter, they're like between the size of a quarter and a half dollar is the size of an Apple AirTag. It's very hard to find that when, oftentimes these people are like stitching them into, like teddy bears and car seats and things like that. I mean, it's really, disturbing stuff.
I mean, it's definitely disturbing, but it's important to remember too that as creative and inventive as the team at Apple, are when they create this technology, this is not new tech. I mean, the ability to create Bluetooth trackers and RFID trackers, and there have been home kits forever. The real technology that Apple has brought to bear is their network. The AirTag itself is not unique. What is unique about AirTag is Apple has allowed that device to leverage their overall network. So my AirTag piggybacks on your phone to report back to Apple as to where it's at. That's why this became such a thing. So ultimately, the security mechanisms around that are where I think a lot of the energy needs to come into play.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big thing that makes the AirTags kind of special in this case is kind of their accuracy and ease of use. Mm-hmm. It is a situation where you just slip it anywhere and you can tell where that AirTag is within feet.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a tremendous sense of peace of mind when you brought up one. I own several AirTags. We traveled to Europe this summer, huge trip for us. I have never been so confident and comfortable at an airport to know, I can sit in the airport, open my phone and say, okay, my bags are physically near me at the gate. That means they're probably on the plane. Or, when I was getting on the boat, excuse me, for those cruisers, the ship that we traveled on, I'm not supposed to call it a boat. It was nice to know my luggage made it on, and it was probably at my cabin. Just this week, I keep an AirTag in my backpack. It's nice to know at a conference, is my bag still in the room? Did I leave it in the conference center? When I leave the facility to go, grab something to eat, where are things at? I mean, that's beneficial. But by the way, I mean, that technology exists in your phone, it exists in your iPad, it exists in your MacBook, it exists in that whole ecosystem of devices, your AirPods, like we talked about. So there's lots of sneaky. It's not just the AirTag's fault. It's the ultimately it's the Apple network and how you can manipulate it. But there is. I'm not going to deny that you have to weigh the benefits with the risk, and there is a bit of a tinfoil hat moment here of what do I need to protect myself against. So I mean, I think ultimately we will see. And you mentioned the app for Android, but we'll see other devices, other mechanisms to say, do I see a signal? Is there a trackable device near me? There'll be a consumer device where you can, scan your person, scan your devices, scan your teddy bears and your purses and backpacks and those types of things to say, somebody planted something on me. So basically, we're all going to become paranoid spies. That's where we're headed.
Nice.
I think there is still very much a question of, is it too late for Apple to and it feels like the ship has kind of already sailed on Apple kind of doing their due diligence here. I know it's not all AirTags, all AirTags' fault, and this technology exists outside of them and before them. But I mean, I think the AirTags have really kind of simplified the process for a lot of these people.
Well, so there were like those. Were they tile keychains? Those came out prior to AirTags, right?
Yeah, tiles have been around forever.
Yeah, and I mean, there wasn't really a huge thing But for that, as far as I'm aware, then again, I'm probably the least informed in terms of the news ever. But, I think a lot of it is just due to the popularity of Apple and AirTags and people realizing what they can do with them if they want to.
But, part of the deal with Tile is, Tile is a type of Bluetooth tech. And once again, the uniqueness to AirTag and to Apple in general is their network. Mm-hmm. Tile doesn't have a network. If I can't get physically close enough, I own some Tiles too. I've experimented with those. You got to get physically close enough to find them. Okay. It's a find my key scenario around the house, gotcha. Or it is, I'm in the airport. I've got a Tile in my bag. If my bag's here, I can probably make something beep and I'll find it if I get close enough to it.
Gotcha.
Whereas Apple, my bag can be in, Scranton, and I can still figure out what's going on and look at it on a map. So, but there's a fun ethical conversation. Let me put my philosopher's hat on for a second. What burden do we put on the folks that create this cool tech to say, I've thought of 18 great things I can do with this. Am I also responsible for coming up with the 18 horrible things that can be done with this, and I need to defend against those?
Yeah.
And that's the conundrum we find ourselves with. I mean, we see technology come out every day, or I shouldn't say we do see technology come out every day, but we see fixes to that technology come out in parallel, a few days, weeks, months later. When the U.S. government decided they were going to put a chip in your passport because it was easier to scan, when you enter, a foreign country or when you're getting back into the U.S., that's fantastic. And then suddenly, people started doing some homemade RFID scanners and realized, oh, crap, I can scan everything about this person from their passport. So, 3 weeks later on Amazon, you could buy an RFID wallet that would create a little Faraday cage and keep your passport safe. When we started putting chips in credit cards, we realized, oh crap, people can scan those chips. I need to get a metal wallet and walk around. And by the way, I'll have back problems because I put it in my back pocket. There's these, we adapt as these things happen. We didn't think of the evils that come along with that. And you deal with it. I mean, we've seen this with biotech. We've seen it with, insulin pumps and pacemakers and all kinds of things that, hey, this is awesome. Look, we can fix this wirelessly. I can just walk up to you and I can reprogram your pacemaker. Or I can adjust your insulin pump, and you realize, crap, did we actually put some security around that so that the wrong person doesn't come up and reprogram my insulin pump? We are a little reactive. Now, to your point, should we be a little more proactive? Yeah, I think we should. I'm a big fan of proactivity. It's it's in the mantra here. But the question is, did Apple perform due care and due diligence before they released the product? I think it's going to be a hard case to make to say they willfully did something evil by releasing AirTag.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that Apple is like an evil company and releasing AirTags in the way that they did was like morally wrong. But I do think when you're thinking about, I do think that this should have been the kind of thing that was easily inferred could be an issue.
I feel like it's really easy to get, even just in my personal life, when something new and exciting happens, it's easy to get a one-mind track on it and then not, these people that develop all this technology, they don't necessarily have the minds of like, oh, what are all the sick and twisted things that people are going to do with this?
Yes, but Apple is a multi-billion-dollar company
who's looking to make multi-billion more dollars.
Actually, they're $1 trillion company now.
$1 trillion company now. The largest technology company in the world. I think it is not too much to ask for Apple to have a team that does look at those kinds of things. Because Apple probably does have a team that is supposed to look at those kinds of things.
Well, do we know, though, that they didn't create the AirTag because, Tim Cook wanted to track one of his kids or, his significant other or something along those lines. And, oh, by the way, we could sell that to people that have luggage. Not saying that's the case. That's a scenario.
I think Apple should start like a prison department with like people who have committed all these like cyber crimes as like consultants for their new tech.
Well, and don't forget, too, this is the obvious, clear consumer, scenario. But, there are already folks out there that are chipping themselves and embedding, rice-sized chips in their hands to work for, HID door openers and to make payments and all this stuff. This is benign technology compared to some of the other evil that's out there.
But those things that those people are doing are things that they're doing to themselves. We're talking about other people buying AirTags and putting them on other people or on or around other people.
Oh, there's also arguments that this has been going on in open and covert warfare for a long time. I mean, the great cinematic masterpiece, the remake of Red Dawn, shows that, the evil North Koreans chipped a kid and tracked them back to tracked down the Wolverines via that implanted RFID chip. So I'm just saying, if they can get to Chris Hemsworth, they can get to anybody.
I'm just saying, I think there's a bit more of a case here than, I mean, there's a reason that there's enough people affected by this to, file an effective class action.
Well, I think there'll be a suit. Obviously there's a suit. I think there'll be some ramifications to that suit. But I mean, this, rightly or wrongly, maybe it's just the curmudgeon-y old man in me, but I file this in the same category of the folks that sued McDonald's over hot coffee. I mean,
well,
I don't think this was willful neglect on the part of the people of Apple.
I mean, people were stalked and then murdered by using AirTags. I mean, that, Apple is not, of course, condoning that, but I mean, I do think it's a bit more severe than that.
I think it's more of a problem moving forward if Apple doesn't, change their processes. Because I don't, like we said, I don't think they intentionally tried to put people in harm's way. I think it just easily could have been an oversight in the process.
No one even in the lawsuit is arguing that Apple intentionally did this.
Well, I don't disagree, but I mean, are you saying we should go after Facebook and Instagram and I'm going to call it Twitter because I can't call it X, or any of the other social media, that because you were silly enough to post you were on vacation and therefore you got robbed, it's their fault that somebody followed your social media and figured out what was going on?
Well, I mean, I think there is something to be said about those companies collecting your data and selling it. And
the amount of metadata out there is,
I think that's, again, that is different because you're voluntarily putting that information out there. You don't get a choice about whether someone else buys an AirTag and, reverse pickpockets it onto you. It's not the same thing.
Well, but once again, there are at home, homebrew kits to make any kind of tracker you want.
Right, but it's so much easier when Apple's released this, $20, $30 product? I can't remember.
No, they're more than that. They're $50 to $100 depending on when they're on sale. You buy them in sets of whatever. So,
but I mean, it's a lot easier to spend $50 to $100 than buy even a $40 at-home kit and try and figure out how to put it together yourself. And it's not going to be as accurate because, again, they don't have Apple's network. I'm just saying it is different.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. But it is, I believe it's sadly the consequence of some of the technologies that we're dealing with. I mean, are you going to get mad at Google or Apple if I social engineer you into putting an app on your phone that I can track? Are you going to get mad at them if I socially engineer you to just let me get proximity to something and then I add your device to my friends list and you don't realize? I mean, there's all kinds of things, but I'm not saying this is not. Please, I'm not condoning the evil use of AirTags here.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that there is a bit of a slippery slope.
Well, I do think there is something to be said for, I wouldn't blame, Apple or Google for, someone social engineering, some bizarre .exe file onto their phone or their laptop or something like that. But, I mean, if they let, a dangerous application on their respective app stores where they claim that they regulate the kind of things that go into those.
Really?
Well, I mean,
and here's where I'm going to pick. Here's where I'm going to be the Apple homer in the room. At least it is a proctored, self-contained ecosystem. On an Android device, their Play Store is openly known to be riddled with some malicious software because it's a much more open ecosystem. They don't restrict where you can download content from. They don't vet that as strictly as Apple still makes mistakes, but they make far fewer mistakes than Android does in terms of what can land on an iOS device or a watch device or an iPad OS or those other pieces of electronics.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you're going to have those standards, and if you're going to, boast about those standards, then, you need to uphold those.
Well, no, I don't disagree. And I think Noah was right in that, let's see how Apple reacts. Let's see if they get better. Because, once again, they control this scenario soup to nuts. I mean, they control the network. They control the technology. So they're openly working on these things.
I guess part of it is like, the cynic in me where,
You?
where I see a scenario like this and I think, well, if Apple manages to get this case dismissed or, if they take it to court and Apple wins, then I don't think anything is going to change.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, Apple said that, there were some precautions that they could have done better, and like taken some different steps to, withhold the problems that were happening.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's a claim by some of the plaintiffs.
Gotcha.
The only thing from Apple in this Ars Technical article that we're looking at here is that they are expected to try and dismiss the lawsuit.
Gotcha.
So
There's a distinct possibility, too, and I don't know if this is real or not. You have to go read your end-user license agreement when you buy your AirTag. And Apple's got a lot of attorneys, like the size of a small, nation state. And so I'm sure there's an illegal agreement somewhere when you purchase that AirTag says, don't do mean things with this, and if you do, it's not our fault. They may have consciously indemnified themselves, before the fact. So,
but that's also, talking from a purely legal perspective. That is,
no, we are talking about a class action lawsuit,
right? But that only goes so far.
Oh, yeah.
It covers negligence, but not gross negligence.
Well,
so I guess it comes down to whether or not.
Right. Well, I mean, we can do
a court will rule this as gross.
A YouTube video at some point about how to build a Faraday cage and how people can protect themselves from this kind of stuff. But I mean, at some point, we have to take the good with the bad, and we've got to learn to manage it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not sure that when I look at like the real kind of horror stories that the plaintiffs in this case are talking about, that I think it's worth the convenience of what the AirTags bring to the table, and I mean that's it's the same thing. It's always a balance of like, it's the classic argument between like convenience and security and liberties in there somewhere. Like you can't.
Yeah.
There's no perfect balance of all of these things.
No, you're right. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is there's a capitalistic opportunity for somebody to create a very effective, AirTag scanner or sweeper or device, and we're going to make tens and tens of dollars selling that to people, on the internet. So.
Man, tens and tens of dollars. I can't even imagine.
Tens of dollars.
I never have to push that button again.
I guess we're gonna move on now.
Move on to the next one.
I think we've agreed you can't solve this problem, but we can make money on the internet talking about it and trying to solve it.
This feels very dystopian,
Oh, I mean, it's the definition of Big Brother, but I mean, and it's the evil use of what I believe is some very good and a very effective technology, but there's so much of it out there. There is so much metadata that we are leaking every moment of every day through everything that we do with our electronic devices and the things that, frankly, we don't do with our own electronic devices, like when we use payment platforms and we do other things. And at some point in time, you got to look at, do I want to live in a hole? Do I want to, move to the woods and go off the grid, or do I want to take some smart decisions and stay in society and just control what I leak? Complete aside, so there was a Michael moment that I experienced this weekend.
Okay.
So I was leaving a retail location, ran in to get a thank you card for someone at the local Dollar General. And I'm coming out, there are two ladies coming in, and I walk out the door, and the lady to my immediate right who's coming in the store just freaks out and takes like 3 steps back. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your personal space. Or it's like, no, there's a spider, and I need you to kill it because I am phobic and I can't get near the door.
Oh no!
I was like, what do you mean? She's like, turn around and look. And I'm looking, I still can't see it. Then you catch it in the right light, and there's a spider that's like looking me eyeball to eyeball, like about half the size of my hand, just hanging down.
Gosh.
Like,
That's awful.
all Charlotte's Web. So I take a swing at it with my little bag, and it bounces off and just comes back. You're like, nah, I'm good. You're not strong enough.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
So
I hate that.
I proceed with the help of this lady's friend to eventually defeat the spider and squish the spider. For all you PETA folks out there, yeah, the spider is no longer with us. But it was atrociously bad because I was sitting there thinking I could have very easily walked in that thing's just on my forehead, just tooling around.
That's awful.
Oh God! So
I hate
beware. 'Tis the season for spiders hanging from unusual
God.
places.
I mean, I did have that on like a much smaller scale Saturday night, where like in my peripheral vision, I thought I saw like a bug flying around the room, and I kind of turned to look at it. No, it's a spider like dangling like right here, and I very calmly stood up and I got my fly swatter and I dealt with it. And I can say that because no one else was in the room with
Yeah,
me.
somewhere in the middle, there was I screamed like an 8-year-old girl, but that's a
Gosh, I don't.
or an 8-year-old boy that's Michael David because it was a spider. So.
I didn't have a spider experience over the weekend.
That's good. I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
Okay. So, Martin Goetz, the first ever software engineer to receive a patent for developing a software program, passed away at the age of 93. And I think kind of, the relevant news story here is, the news story is the fact that he passed away. I think it is very interesting kind of looking at his story and seeing how, not that long ago, software wasn't a thing. And, for a while after software was a thing, it was basically only owned by, like, the biggest tech companies in the world. He kind of basically pioneered the idea of being able to own and invent these things as an individual and not as just like an employee of, in those days, like IBM or, the other tech giants of like the very early internet and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I mean, he took a big swing. I mean, he took on the definition of the man when it comes to technology back in the day. I mean, to go head to head with IBM and to win, and not only to win, but to win the suit and then sell the product back to them and make money is, it was, he started a revolution. That's the best way, I think, to put it. Because if you look at what came from that, we don't have Microsoft without his efforts. We don't have, the personal computer. We don't have a lot of things if you don't have that, because that's, a lot of the cool consumer tech we have only exists because it became profitable to write the code to use on those devices. So, that became a marketplace, a revenue stream.
Yeah, how many, mainstream things that we use every day are just the product of some guy sitting in his basement trying to do a specific thing,
Oh, yeah. No question.
Right. I think, it's huge. I think it's hard to kind of fathom the way the world would be without his contributions, which makes me, in a way, kind of sad that, for one, I had never heard of him until he passed away, and we did, the story about him for the YouTube channel. And I think it's in a way pretty sad that I don't think that's uncommon for most people. And I'm sure you were at least like kind of passingly aware of him, right?
Yeah, I was marginally aware of who he was and what he did. I didn't know all of his history. But I think it's a very relevant conversation to have right now, to think about him and to applaud, all that he accomplished, because, we've come full circle and then some, because you guys have talked about it on this podcast and we talk about it on a regular basis. What's going to happen when we get things like software written by AI or software augmented by AI, and what does that look like? And how do we control the patentability of original thought? And frankly, what is the definition of original thought in the 21st century? So the fact that he laid the groundwork, for all that we know, is absolutely huge. And it's funny to see it. Jimmy Orton here at the office sent me an article not too long ago about the history of DEC and all that came from it's a computer system that predates both of you, but it was one of the first real proper multi-threaded architectures for computer operating systems. And you can go back and see the history of that company and the software that they wrote and the ideas they brought forward that became Microsoft Server architecture, basically became Windows NT. But you also see components of that showed up in an Apple Mac and showed up in functionality we see in the iPad today. And it's that you don't have people motivated to come up with those awesome ideas that spread out and become the ecosystem we live in if they can't profit from it, if they just know the man, the IBMs, and in our world the Apples and Metas and Googles and Teslas and SpaceXs of the world are just going to take that away from us and monopolize it. So it's the everyman story. It's the fact that to your point, some guy or gal in his or her basement can come up with a cool idea and do something with it. It's huge. It's massive.
I think it'll be really interesting to see because I'm sure it'll happen at some point, that there will be another, big turning point similar to that where, because with AI becoming what it is, and right now they're putting restrictions on not being able to copyright stuff made by AI and that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a point where that becomes something that does happen.
I think you're going to be hard pressed to see at any point works being made kind of solely by AI being copywritten, and I guess it does kind of come down to at what is kind of the minimum
human input
to make these things. Well, we're kind of blending patentable and copyrightable,
yeah,
which are not the same thing. But I don't know. It's very interesting.
They're interwoven though. Don't lose sight of the fact that it's the patent and the copyright in both situations just simply means that I can take credit for this and I can sort of govern how it's going to be used.
Right.
I know this sounds way more exciting than it does, but I spent a lot of time hanging out with some data scientists this past week. I know, wild and crazy. Conga lines as far as the eye can see. But, one of the conversations that came up in one of the keynotes at the event I was at was the fact that, data scientists, these mathematicians, to become effective, they've got to be able to write code. They've got to be able to work in tools like R and some other things. And because we have GitHub and SourceForge and some of these other tools out there on the internet, where not only can you have software and resources that are patentable or copyrightable, you also have things like the GNU public license that's out there to say, I don't want to make any money off of this. I want to share it with the rest of the world, but I want to say if I share it with the rest of the world, you can't make this like something commercial and corrupt it. So we see both sides of that. It's just really the idea of, can we control or shape how our thoughts are used to do things. And that's kind of cool. And this comes back to the fact that we were able to break software away from hardware and say it's not just a black box. It's not just a widget in the box.
Yeah.
And fun things can happen. And yes, you too can go hang out with data scientists at your next conference, and it's lots of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Rest in peace, Mr. Goetz. We appreciate it. Everything that you did.
You were the GOAT.
He really was the guy. He was.
I think it's important to recognize these early real pioneers of technology, because I don't think they're as really heralded as they maybe should be.
They don't teach this kind of stuff in like your history class. The only time I've ever learned about like anyone important in like the tech field was when I took like a history of digital media class.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One time, and that was something that most people would probably never take.
Right.
Well, and it's important to remember, I mean, we're talking about a gentleman that was, 93 when he passed away.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are a lot of great pioneers out there in a lot of different technical fields that are, well, not your all. Well, there's some that are your all's age, too. There's some folks that are in their 20s and 30s. There are folks that are my age in their 40s and 50s that are still out there doing great things. They're still speaking. They're still engaging.
Yeah.
Take this opportunity not only to go thank those folks, but take this opportunity to go learn from them. Follow their podcasts and their YouTube channels, or go see them at a conference, or show up at a book signing, or get books, the paper versions.
Yeah, I've seen those before.
You can get them to sign your Kindle, but it's really weird when you go to.
You get like 2 or 3 autographs. You can't use it anymore.
Exactly. But go engage. I mean, it's crazy to think. I mean, it was funny. Quick aside. So I'm at an event with a bunch of cybersecurity professionals. And they give out awards at this event. I'm a member of a body that's one of the more reputable cybersecurity groups out there, and so they have senior achievement in cybersecurity awards. And the gentleman that won one of those awards walked up on stage. I leaned over to Adam Meadows, who sat next to me. He's like, "That guy's younger than me. How did he get a senior award in something?" But I mean, you can do great things for 20 years and be 35 or 40. So don't lose sight of that.
I got to get it together.
Yes, we have all underachieved, but we've also overachieved in a lot of ways. Don't cut yourself short, but go learn. Go talk to these folks. Sorry, I will step off my soapbox now.
That's good. Tyler usually keeps the conversation rolling for us. And me and Michael spend literally like 10 to 12 hours a day talking to each other. It's easy to run out of things to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay.
The brain.
Yeah.
The brain. Brains!
Frankenstein.
It's a Halloween thing.
Yeah.
Well, Dad, I think it's kind of on you to take the lead on this one.
For the record, Michael's handed me a physical book, and I'm disappointed because he's had it for a good 20 minutes. Why he hasn't read it yet, I don't know. But
it's not signed or anything.
I did get a copy of the book. I did not want to stand in line for the 4 hours it would take to get Dr. Farahani to sign it. But fascinating talk that should just chill all of us to the bone. At the ISC2 Security Congress that I attended, Dr. Nita Farahani gave a talk. She is an expert in neurotechnology. She's also an attorney, and really focused on the fact that we have had for some time, not just technology, but commercially available technology that can, in many ways, not only understand what is going on in our minds and our emotional states and our focus, but thanks to the evolution in the last 18 months of iterative AI, can now read our minds and tell us exactly what we're thinking, which forced every paranoid person in the room, so let me be clear, security conference, so that was all of us, to freak out. But once again, this sort of comes back to the AirTag conversation. Tremendous benefits to this technology, and also freaky, scary things that can happen. But it was a very interesting conversation to say, okay, we've been able to identify patterns in brainwaves for a long time. We've been able to figure out what portion of the brain is doing something deeply analytical, or I'm having an emotional response, or I'm feeling love towards this person or anger towards this person. But only in the last year or two, once we realized that with the advent of AI technologies like ChatGPT and others, that with the right algorithm, we can feed them this brainwave information, and they are fast enough and agile enough and flexible enough to interpret that. One of the studies she mentioned, which just absolutely curled my toes, and I am convinced that the NSA's got an MRI room somewhere that I don't know about, but they put people in an advanced MRI and played podcasts for them. And using the MRI, they recorded their brain activity. They fed that activity back through ChatGPT 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, the original ChatGPT. And that AI algorithm was 87% effective at regurgitating what that person was hearing.
Wow.
So it basically reiterated the podcast conversation. There's all kinds of technology that's out there today that is monitoring this and feeding it back to an AI algorithm to do a lot of things. I'm convinced there are spies somewhere. Like, let's walk in this conference room. We're sitting here in a conference room here at the corporate global headquarters of Burk IT, and I'm convinced that if I was smart enough, I could embed MRI technology into this room, and then there's somebody out there, reading our minds. But there's a spy doing that somewhere on this planet. But
as freaky as this is, I think that if this was like something that I could just like order off of Amazon, and any of those times I walk into the kitchen and forget what I walked in there for, if I could just like zap myself and remember, that would be pretty cool. But yeah, no, that's really kind of terrifying.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's consumer stuff. I mean, there are hats, like ball caps, that you can actively buy that over-the-road truck drivers and heavy machine operators are wearing, that can monitor your brain activity, tell if you are focusing on your task, focusing on your primary task or a secondary task, and are you getting fatigued, are you getting distracted, and therefore we need to stop you from operating this dangerous vehicle. Those are in production, in use today. There are headbands that can monitor, workers in an office environment that say, are you focusing on your primary task, or are you focusing on something secondary, like you're chatting with your friend in Teams, or are you having amorous, feelings about the person one cubicle over, and that's against office policy. And there are companies that are actually monitoring brainwave activity using these devices to say you were productive this week or you were not.
That's just like,
this is the world we are in today.
This is like full on dystopia.
Yeah.
This is literally it's horrifying.
I know they say you can't really focus on more than one thing at a time, right? That's what they say. Yeah. But like, I feel like I have a lot of tasks that I do on a daily basis that are just mindless tasks that I can complete without paying attention to them. So I feel like, if I were in this scenario where someone was monitoring my brainwaves, it would be like seismic activity off the charts, just all over the place, because I'm not a focused person a lot of the time.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I guess like there is part of you hear stuff about like the construction workers and like truck drivers and people who are operating this like heavy duty and dangerous machinery where there's a practical element where it is good to know that those people are solely focused on not wrecking the 6-ton 18-wheeler on the highway.
I feel like this is very comparable to the AirTag conversation, where it's a technology that's really cool and has a lot of practical uses, but also can be very scary and misused by certain people.
Well, let me bring this full circle for you in terms of Apple. It was released a couple of weeks ago, this came up in the talk, that Apple has filed a U.S. patent for an integration into AirPods that will allow to do an active EEG between the AirPods, one on either side of your head, to know what's going on in your brain waves and be able to adjust playlists and be able to provide feedback and, why are you so sad, and let Siri, talk you off the ledge or whatever it's going to do. But that is an active filed United States patent. There are not AirPods, but there are earpods, generic AirPods out there by companies that can sense your mood and adjust your playlist accordingly as you're working out or going about your day to help keep you on track and make you feel better about things.
That is absolutely insane.
I don't know. This kind of technology is just horrifying to me, honestly. Mostly because I have again, full on cynicism here. I just have no faith in our government or any governmental legal entity to properly regulate this kind of technology.
It's freaky. It's scary. This is the definition of a tinfoil hat moment. But it's important. I think we need to give Dr. Nita Farahani, her due, and mention this book that I'm sitting here staring at, The Battle for Your Brain, subtitle of which is Defending the Right to Think Freely in the Age of Neurotechnology. That's what we're dealing with. Because, I live in a world of IT security, cybersecurity. We talk a lot about privacy rights. This is the definition of how do we legislate thought privacy. This doesn't exist. I mean, you're both probably aware, the world's probably aware that, privacy law and technology law and cybersecurity law and, internet usage law is old. The last relevant, legislation the U.S. government passed in this area was back in the 90s, and we're, almost 3 decades past. We can't wait for this kind of stuff to catch up because, it's scary.
Have y'all seen Moon Knight?
Yeah.
I have not watched Moon Knight. I know
It's like, at what point do we get to where it's kind of like the villain in Moon Knight, where he's like, putting people to their doom because they have just impure thoughts,
Yeah. Oh, it's Minority Report. I mean, this is where we're headed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of 3 people in a pool, it's it's ChatGPT 6 that's just making decisions on who goes to jail.
Yeah. I don't know.
Happy thoughts. Really, no, focus on happy thoughts. We're being monitored right now.
Be careful.
They ain't good things. No. I can't wait for the team meeting on Friday when I hand out all the new Burk hats that everybody gets to wear. We are changing our dress code. You can wear this ball cap all day long.
Actually, you have to wear this ball cap all day long.
I don't know. I guess time will tell. I guess the one kind of encouraging thing I hear from this talk and this story is that, it kind of required advanced MRI technology to, get in like the real nitty gritty of what you're thinking about, which, is still not super encouraging, but like MRIs are massive and clunky now.
Yeah, so were computers 30 years ago.
Yeah, so I'm saying, maybe I have some time to build that cabin in the woods. Or,
yeah, I think we've got a couple, 3 years, but I mean, it's coming. I mean, well, and you're right. I mean, mind reading, though it's here, is not at a scale that should scare us too terribly much right now.
But I mean, the fact that it's here.
It's here.
That's,
here.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's times like this that I'm really glad that I work at like a cybersecurity place, because I feel a little bit safer, At least I know if something does happen, I got people who understand why it happened and how to help me get out of it.
We may not be able to stop it, but we can let you know that you're screwed ahead of time.
Which, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think I'd rather not know. I think this is one of those ignorance is bliss kind of situations, but it's too late now.
Yeah.
Now
I know, and audience.
Yeah. The genie is out of the bottle.
But I don't know. Time will tell. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised by, I don't know, something, anything.
Well, I mean, the hope. Let's be. Let me before everybody, throws all of their electronics in the nearest lake. Which, by the way, they're all waterproof now anyway, so it's not going to stop it. But be aware of the fact that we are making strides. There are privacy laws in Europe, in the EU, in California, in New York, in Connecticut, and other places that being adopted that hopefully can be adjusted to help us at least control some of the metadata that comes from these technologies. And the other good thing is there's a lot of think about the good that can come from this. Think about how this can help folks with dementia and Alzheimer's and other brain-related injuries, and the retraining of your brain to do other things. And not to mention, pretty soon, be able to put on a headband and not have to touch a keyboard or, do whatever. I mean, if nothing else, Ready Player One is a lot closer. We're getting to that point. So,
I don't know. I do think it's the kind of thing where I wish, you think about someone like Stephen Hawking, who, towards the end of his life only had like the, an eye-based kind of, like vision to text interpreter, and that was the only way that he could, speak. So to say, I think if we had this kind of technology to interpret like the brainwaves for people like that, and turn them back into words, and we have like AI voices and things like that now. I mean, I think there's a lot of really positive ways in which this technology can be used.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's worth hanging on to that.
No, I mean, and you're exactly right. I mean, like I said earlier, I think you take the good and you take the bad and you figure it all out. I'm not going to sing the theme to the Facts of Life, just to be very clear. But, yeah, I mean, there is value in this technology. Let's just make sure we can keep it under control.
So who's like the lead mind control developer right now?
There's a bunch of them out there. I mean, like I said, there's a patent that Apple's filed. There's a lot of folks that are looking at this. I haven't read the book yet. I just got to listen to the talk.
I mean, I think there's a good chance of we're using ChatGPT as part of this. There's a good Microsoft surely got some kind of
Foot in the door.
hand in the pie.
Well, and Meta has apparently invested very heavily in this space. So,
right, but apparently I was actually in that Guardian article I sent you all earlier that was talking about this book. Really, actually divested a bit. They're now looking into like wrist-based technology.
yeah, actually, I saw a demo that was part of this presentation. I saw a demo of their wrist-based technology, and it is fascinating because it is interpreting neurosignals coming from your brain down to your wrist and your hand to basically facilitate interaction with the computer. So instead of holding a mouse, you can just move your thumb around and it'll move the cursor, and you can double. A lot of the technology. I mean, we have some of these today.
Yeah.
But it's doing it at the neurological level instead of the muscular level. The way, for those of you that are aware that Apple has had the double pinch functionality with an Apple Watch for some time, but it's actually using the gyroscopic sensors in the watch to feel your muscles twitch.
Yep.
What Meta's doing is saying we're actually going to pick up the neurological impulses, the actual signals to react with the watch. And once again, it exists. It's on the market. It's a wearable that's out there. So, I mean, really, the other thing you have to think about is, how far are we from being the little fat, clueless people from WALL-E on the thing, because we don't have to move anymore. We just sit in our little floating chair and interact with the world with our minds.
Fascinates me how much WALL-E gets brought up in this kind of world we're in.
Yeah. Or we all just get plugged into the Matrix, one or the other.
I think if we're being, really real about the horror movie thing, I think more than anything, I'm probably going to be the killer,
That's terrifying. I feel like I could survive you. Like, if you were trying to kill me, I think I could.
I don't know, but he's got the eyebrow for it.
Oh, he's got...
I mean, it's the definition of...
He's got the demeanor to...
Yeah, the serial killer eyebrow.
Slaughter some people.
I mean, I'm not going to be like a Michael Myers. I'm not coming at you with a kitchen knife. I'm going to be smarter about it than that.
Yeah, he's going to be plugged into the grid somewhere using his mind.
I'm going to be
take
even more smarter.
More smarter?
Yeah. That's how I win.
All right.
I get Hubble to get you.
Right.
You couldn't hurt Hubble. She's too cute.
No, I wouldn't hurt Hubble. I wouldn't have to if your brake lines were cut.
That's not going to stop me. I'd see the brake.
No, it really won't. It won't stop you at all. Right off the bridge.
I just feel like I'm aware enough that I've driven many vehicles that leak a lot, so I would notice if there was a bunch of brake fluid underneath my car.
Yeah. That's not what I don't know about cars to cut a brake line.
Am I allowed to cut the air hose? It's just hot.
Yeah.
Hook up the antenna to the stereo. Radio will go out, but that's all you know.
Yeah. I'd be under your truck and I'd be like, "Hey Noah, where's your which one of these is your brake line?"
Gosh. Be the most obvious criminal lineup ever. You've got like 4 clean guys and 1 dude covered in grease and brake fluid going, "Nah, it wasn't me. I swear." Yeah.
Thank you for listening to It's News to Me. If you enjoyed this content and would like to see or hear more like it, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@BurkIT or go to our website at burkitc.com. Our theme music is Big City Lights by Icolix. Be sure to come back in 2 weeks to hear more from me, Noah, and Tyler. And in the meantime, keep your data secure and your mind sharp. How do I usually...
You say the 3 topics, and I say it's news to me.
Right. I was figuring out. Thinking about
Would you like me to
trying
bring up a former podcast and play it for you so that you can?
No, I was trying to think of how we can change things up to make it like Halloween-y, you know?
I'd say it's booze to me, but that sounds more like
No.
drinks.
Okay.
It's creepy to me.
You mean to just scream?
No. No, I don't want you to do that. It's gonna just ruin the audio.
It's
Okay.
Halloween.
He could just say it in like a old school Dracula voice.
Bleh.
Okay, all right.
I want to start the podcast.